Welcome to the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. The journey of an awakening spirit is about teaching you a variety of tools that you can use to step into your true self. It is about self-discovery, realizing you are not alone on your journey. We will open the phone lines, give readings, and talk about what our listeners want to know. So please welcome the host of the journey of an awakening spirit, Kathleen Flanagan.
Hi, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, and welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. And we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And today we are going to talk about a powerful mind. But before we start, I want to go ahead and open the show with some sound. Okay, so I want to talk about the powerful mind. And yes, it's part of the mindset series that I've been talking about, but this takes us a little bit more down the physiological place. And what's interesting is I'm actually taking a 5-day challenge with David Bear right now. And he's actually talking about just how the mind actually works. And I find it interesting because when I signed up for this, I knew things were starting to shift and change, but I didn't really fully understand what it was. But I knew I was getting to like a core of something that I'm on a real close breakthrough. And so, I started having dreams again. I got to see a little bit more of the extent of the abuse that's in my family that I didn't know, and brought a lot more clarity to things that I have seen that I didn't understand, but I do now. And the only reason that I believe it and trusted it was because it was in my dream and how it was delivered. Now, I had no emotion when I experienced this, but it just brought a little bit more clarity. Like there's like a deeper meaning. And I think part of what's going on, I'm sorry, I have a cat doing something. Anyways, it brought in more dreams, okay? And it brought more clarity into the issue in my crawl space. And the crawl space, of course, it's finally emptied out. We got rid of all the mold. It was bad. Mushrooms were growing. It was just total disgust. And it's done. It's dried out. And when I was in Riverton last week, Sal gave me a call and basically told me, he said, we actually have a lot more soil erosion than we realized. And when I came home, he showed me where it was, and I could literally put my hand between the foundation of my house and the hole. It was like, how deep does this go? And so I was like, okay, it's what it is. It's foundational work. And that's kind of what I'm looking at, is I'm doing a lot more foundational work. Like old limiting beliefs are leaving type of thing. Because there's messages here. There's no doubt that these are messages. It's just having to decipher what that message is. And so when I was listening to David's show yesterday, and I listened to all the rest of the training and did some of the homework assignments today, it just started making more sense about that. We're in a fog. A lot of times we are in a fog, and that's kind of how it is. And we have to trust. We go as far as you can and wait until the next one, because that's how you get through fog. And that's what goes on in our brain. But what was the most interesting, and when I was reviewing all this for tomorrow or for today's show, what I came to realize that I didn't really fully understand yet at that time was that the brain is constantly changing. Not only is it growing and adapting, but it also changes. It also changes in terms of what's capable of feeling, of how we feel, and the chemical balance is is likely to change a huge amount. So our brain goes through a number of states depending on which the brain states you are experiencing at any given time, and you can expect very different results. So if we look at a few mental states and how they have incredible impacts on how we feel and perform. So you have a flow state, and this is a much coveted state that is often described as being the state of the ultimate peak human performance. But it's more complex than that. And this is where we are completely focused on a given task normally because you perceive it as highly important. This actually suppresses activity in the frontal region of the brain, allowing you to act on near pure instinct and thereby giving you intense mental clarity or reactions. Then you have your fight or flight. And this is a stressful state. As we all know, the body is releasing adrenaline, dopamine, and other chemicals that ramp up the nervous system and increase strength while we are suppressing an immune function and digestion. And it's not that the stress is a bad thing for a short period of time, but acute stress allows us to react to situations quickly when we need to. The problem comes when this state carries on and becomes chronic, which most of us are living in a chronic stress state. Then you have your rest and digest, and this is opposite of the fight or flight, and this is when the body is able to relax and calm down, and this is when we digest our food, when we sleep, and we build tissue. We are also more creative when we are in this state. Then there's the hysterical strength, and this is where we're a little it's like we're a berserker maker. We're in berserker mode. We are under extreme duress. We produce so much adrenaline that we're unable to call on incredible reserves of strength. And this demonstrates how much we impact our mind, how much our impact our mind can have on our body. And that is just possible when we're in this type of a mindset. And there are many others that we perform best in, and what we need to get into the right mindset. So when you're looking at the physiologicalness of your mood, that's why I always say it's really critical that we understand our emotions and our moods, because a lot of times it is coming from a function that's going on inside of us. So if we're not controlling our moods or our emotions, then we can be having other issues. And our body can actually affect our emotions. So if we're hungry, you know, I think we're having technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Not sure what's going on, but when you're live, anything can happen. Anyways, so what I was doing, I was actually talking about just how our mind actually works with our body. And, if we're hungry, then our emotions start taking over and our blood sugar goes down, we're releasing cortisol and other chemicals. So even though we think that we're in control of our body, if we're hungry, we need to eat, and then that's going to produce the serotonin that puts us back into a good mood. And I know that there were times when if I wasn't eating, I know that my blood sugar was so low that I would go critical. And if my ex-husband at the time wouldn't feed me, because I'd say, you need to feed me now, not a half hour from now, but now. And then you like turn into this banshee bitch. And that's what I would do. So he learned real quickly that when I say I'm hungry and I need to eat now, that he knew exactly what that meant. And that's just paying attention to your body, because a lot of times our minds tell us what's going on. So, and if you're having a bad day, I mean, are you having hormonal issues? Are you sick? I mean, those are the things you have to look at, because, we know how we feel generally. And like when I came back from Riverton this week, I was just like useless on Saturday. It was like when I got out of the car on Friday afternoon, when I got home and I sat down, and it was almost like I was in this critical panic state. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Because I had just driven home 5 hours on the road. It was great. There was no bad weather. Nobody did anything stupid on the highway. It was just a good, easy drive home. And yet there was almost this panic that occurred when I got home. And then I was so worthless on Saturday. It was almost like I thought I was sick. And I wasn't sick, because I actually sat down to like look at it, because this was something different that was going on. But I think part of it is that I just had to pay attention to where I was. I mean, I was tired. I mean, that's the bottom line. I had been on the road off and on for the last 2 months. And I think I just hit, I just hit a wall, and I had to stop moving and rest. And that's not a bad thing a lot of times when you need to stop and rest like that. But there are times that also becomes a hindrance, where you become this couch potato, and you come home from work and you turn on the boob tube and you sit there for hours and hours and hours and watch it. Well, that's really not good for your brain, because, our mind needs to grow. It needs to evolve. It's a tool, it's a muscle. And if we're not giving it things to help it to grow, then it's going to atrophy. And, I remember years ago, they're saying Alzheimer was from eating sugar your whole life, or, the aluminum in deodorant, or whatever they were saying at the time. But I really believe that Alzheimer's is if you're not using your brain, because I did read an article where they said that we're in school up to 22 years of our life. If we go to college, if we go to become a PhD or go into master program, then you're in school a little bit longer. But what happens is when people get out of school, they pretty much stop learning and they stop growing, and they just kind of get into a rut. And that's what I really think the truth of Alzheimer is that we're not growing and evolving, because our brain is able to adapt to whatever it is. And it's called the brain plasticity. And that describes the ability of the brain to grow and change shape. So to create new neurons or to become stronger, herein lies the principle, and it says specific adaptations to impose demands. So if you practice languages, you get better at a language. And if you practice balance, the brain gets better at balance. So if you're not growing, then all that extra neural matter is just wasted energy. And then the result is your brain starts to atrophy and starts to burn through that extra matter. And the result is that you deteriorate. The brain loves to grow. I think that's why I've always done things to where I am growing and evolving. So if it was spiritual development or I'm taking classes, it's all about that growth, because when you're doing that, then it's like you're giving that much more ammunition to your brain, to where your brain gives you more, so it feels more confident in life. It's not like it has just this little tiny bit as a tool to get through something. It actually goes bigger and more than that. Sorry. And I think when I'm doing that, because, I finished college in my 30s, and then I started a business, and all the things I had to learn and grow, I felt that it was stimulating. I felt I was still alive. Yes, I was pushing myself. It was hard to do this, getting that muscle memory in the brain to remember how to memorize things, to take tests and all of that. And I think that's why I've just jumped from various careers throughout my life as well, was excuse me, because I wanted to keep growing and evolving. I mean, that's why we're here on this planet, is to grow and evolve. It's not to come down here and get into the 9 to 5 and then die. That's not our purpose here. So, so right now I'm also learning more about marketing, and don't think this is easy for me. This is really challenging. I mean, marketing is not my forte, but I'm learning how to market so I can just become better and be more successful and get people to know who I am and to grow my business as well. And, so I'm always learning. And even though I'm hitting the age where you're in retirement, I don't even know what that word means, because I don't think I'll ever retire, because I just feel like I have a lot to say, and I still have things I want to do and accomplish in my life. And even though I've accomplished everything that I've wanted to so far, except for one thing, and that's having the successful business, I just wanted to keep moving towards that. So when I was listening to David today, and he talked about, there's four things that prevent us from moving forward, and it's not just our mindset and limiting beliefs and all that, but there's a resistance there. And I'm like, wow, that's something different, because I'm kind of feeling that there's something I'm resisting, but not really quite sure what that resistance is. And of course that's tomorrow's lesson. But the whole point is that he talked about in one of his classes that he was coming up against like a very core belief that he had, his wife was, and his brother was, and he realized that there was something here. This is when this resistance came through for him to move into another direction. But what was interesting that he said, and it made a lot of sense to me, and I'm going to really ponder this more because it really made a lot of sense, was that here's his dad's beliefs, mom's beliefs, and he said somewhere they intersected and created a new belief that he picked up, which was worry, because he was worried about all sorts of things, and everything was showing, even though his outward signs of his life wasn't there, but he was worried. And I'm thinking, well, that really makes a lot of sense, because the other thing that I've been doing in order to keep my mindset going is that I'm going back to, why am I here? What was my spiritual vision? What's the purpose of why I'm here on the planet? And last week I did a video for me, not for anybody else at this point, but just for me, of why I'm here and reflecting on my life. And yes, the things that happen in your life is all about where you are today, and you're in the right place at the right time, right here, right now. You are whole and complete just the way you are. And that's the bottom line. So if you're supposed to be someplace else, you would be there. If not, this is where you're supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect. But it's about really waking up and remembering who you are and understanding that our bodies serve us. And the reason I'm going to say this is because when I was in Chicago, there was a point I left my body for 3 days. I did not understand why I left my body. And this is all in Dancing Souls, the first book. And when I left my body, and I remember it was like that Friday, I had gone to Costco and I got the biggest bag of Doritos I had ever seen in my life. And it was like I unconsciously put them in the cart. I came out consciously and said, what are those doing in there? And I went to put them back, and Spirit said, no, leave them alone. Put them back in the car. I'm like, okay. So I did. And I didn't understand that at the time. Well, what I discovered is our body does not know how to operate without our spirit. For 3 days, I couldn't bathe. I managed to make coffee. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to do anything. And so what I ate was those Doritos for 3 days. And it was like mind-blowing to me of what happened. And I didn't know. It took me 6 months before I talked to somebody who actually said guess what? You left your body. And we're going to go ahead and take a short break, and I will continue the story after we hear from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are on the Bold Brave TV network. So what I was talking about was when I left my body. And during that period of time, I knew that I was making a decision if I chose to live or if I chose to die. Because what happened was I had completed whatever the main mission was that I came here to do, and Spirit gave me the opportunity to leave. And I took 3 days out and went on a little journey, and not understanding anything at that point and feeling scared and lost and confused. And I couldn't believe I had no ability to do anything. So I really realized that Spirit really does drive our bodies. I mean, this body is to function and house our spirit. When I did find out about 6 months later, I was talking to a woman and she said, you left your body. That's what happens when you check out and you were making that decision to live or die. Of course, I chose to live. For whatever reason, I chose to come back and continue on this lovely journey of life. And it was very challenging, because when I talked about in this little Why Am I Here thing video for myself, to just like really hone in on creating that's what I want, the one thing that came up was the hopelessness that I felt in 2011. My mother had died, and I felt very alone, and nobody was there for me. That was an illusion, because a lot of times we think these limiting beliefs are real, but they weren't, because this was the first sign. This is what David Baird talks about as well, was I had to really look at that it was a limiting belief. It wasn't true. I wasn't alone. I knew I wasn't alone, but yet I felt very alone, very isolated. And I understood what hopelessness meant. And I understood why suicide was and is running rampant in our world right now. Hopelessness is probably one of the worst emotions you could ever feel. I had never felt hopelessness before, and this was devastating. Because even when I left my body, I was afraid and kind of nervous and scared. Once I started to come back, I could feel that, but the hopelessness was something I didn't know how to handle at that point. And part of it was just grief. I mean, that was the main thing, was grief. And there's when you lose a loved one, especially your mother, because you are physically connected to her, there was like, my spirit was like, I'm alone. There's nobody here for me. My mom's dead. And that did a lot of things in my thinking that I didn't understand yet. And I knew I would grieve her death, but I didn't think it would affect me and impact me to the degree that it did. And when I was feeling all of that, and, I would have a good day and then I have a bad day, and which was typical. I mean, that's what happens in grief. But I couldn't get through it the way I wanted to. There was just something. And even though I was aware what my spirit was doing, the spirit finally came in and said, I want you to get in the tub, and I want you to go in and get your forks out, put your essential oils out, and we're going to get this taken care of for you. So what I did is I had a soaker tub that had jets in it, a jetted tub. So I did that. I put the essential oils in, got in, and then they started telling me what fork to use, and I did, and I hit the water, and it was like my brain went all the way through, because I was rewiring my brain, and sound works on the waters of our body. So I'm in water. So this is going through my body, and I'm dealing with moving into another place. And resistance is obviously something that I was wanting to move through, because, who wants to be in grief? Who wants to resist making changes? I mean, just because my mother died didn't mean I needed to stop living. And I know when my grandmother died, my mother pretty well stopped living, and my father went out of control. And that's when the abuses really started in our family. So I didn't want to relive that. So that was another thing that I was reliving too, was when my grandmother died and how my mother responded. And of course, as a young child, I'm watching this, and I'm not about to do that to myself either, because this again is another mindset. It's a limiting belief. It's what I saw. It's what I observed. This is how I'm thinking I'm supposed to act. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not doing this. So Spirit helped me to actually move through this grief. And when I did, it was like I was better. I mean, I wasn't looking for my mom anymore. I wasn't feeling that hopelessness. Gratitude was coming in, because it was the only thing I knew to do at that time. Was I'm just grateful I'm back in Colorado. And I just found my way. And I had friends who helped me. They lent me money so I could at least pay my rent, because I literally did not have any work or money coming in. And I just sat there on the couch, and I visualized over and over what I wanted to do, what I wanted. And that's all I did. That's all I knew to do at that point, because there was nothing else I could do. I'm reaching out to people saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Do you have anything for me to do so I can earn a little bit of money to pay my rent? And nobody took me up on it. So, so what's the limiting belief that comes up? Nobody loves you. Nobody cares about you. You're worthless. You should just die. And that was the shit that what I was saying, and I had to stop that. So when Spirit told me to go into the bathtub and do this, I started to rewire the neurons. I started to reprogram my brain, because that's what our brain does. We activate or we turn neurons off in our brain. It's the secret all over again about what we do. And it takes time and it takes practice. And I was bound to determine that I was going to change whatever was going on up here in my brain. Because who wants to live like that? And so that was the stream. This was the beginning of a whole journey of where I am today, of really looking at that. So of course, so here I am again. I'm talking to Zach yesterday on the phone. We just made a connection because she's going to be on the show next week. And we kind of discussed what we're going to talk about, which is going to be really pretty cool. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one, because we're going to talk about opening portals and vortexes when Spirit asks us to do that. And she's in the process of going to be doing that. And it's pretty exciting. And I've done a lot of it. So we're going to go more in depth about that. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun show. And you'll really get into a little bit more of this stuff. But, we were just chatting because, life is doing what life does, right? And I said, and here's the latest on my basement, and here's this, and, and I said, and there's things coming up, and, and we we just kept talking and just kind of being able to just feel like I can talk to somebody who's going to just share and be real and not have this pompous, oh, everything's wonderful crap when life isn't always wonderful. I mean, we all need that little bit to help and support. And I wasn't complaining or anything. I was just like, I just want to talk to somebody who's human, who's real, who's down to earth, who's doing all the spiritual stuff, moving in that direction, where we're supporting each other. And that's what we did. And we had that conversation. And then, then I'm like going through some of this stuff and I'm like, this is so cool because it's like, I know I'm right there at a breaking point. I don't know what it is, but I know I'm there and I'm looking for that push. And I think that's why when David Bear sent out this email, I'm like, well, what the hell? I mean, there's something I'm trying to move through something. And that's what we go through. We know something's there, but we don't always know how to manage it. That's why you work with people. You take classes, you grow, you evolve, because I'm not going to just sit there and go, well, I can't see it and give up on my dream. I'm not going to do that to myself. I've come too far to get there. And don't think that I'm not sitting there going, well, maybe I'm just not supposed to have money, or maybe I'm just not supposed to have the life that I've always wanted. And then it's like, no, that's not true. That's a limiting belief. It is your divine right to have all the money you want, a nice place to live if that's what you want, if you want to travel the world. These are your rights. These are our divine rights to have. And only you can create that. So yeah, have I been in the battles of my own limiting beliefs? Oh, you betcha, honey. I'm no different than anybody else. But at least I'm looking at it. I'm moving in another direction. It's like, okay, what I'm doing is still working, but it's not working fast enough, or there's something that I'm not seeing properly. And so here's all of a sudden, it's like, well, there's this resistance. You have a resistance that I'm like, well, that's an interesting thought. I didn't even think about resistance. So if you get rid of the resistance and you have your desire, then you have this whatever you call it, some sort of unlimited potential or something. I don't know what it was, but and I'm like, well, yeah, because I have the desire there, but I can feel that I'm resisting something. I just don't know what that is. So of course I'm going to do the homework assignments so I can get into the core of what that is, so I can move and grow. Because, because it's always going to be you. It's always going to be your mindset. So even though we have a physiological thing and we have a brain that's going to do certain things, we are always going to be dealing with what we were learned and how we responded and the thought we attached to it when we were prior to 8 years old, because we were sponges. That's all we were sponges. And, and I don't care how many times I hear that, when somebody says it and they say it just a little bit different, you get a little bit of, kind of thing. That's just a little bit more, that it just kind of takes you down another level, because that's the truth. That is the truth. We associated and put things on him. Some of our biggest is, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm not lovable. All of this stuff. And it was all because I was pushed aside as a child. I was the oldest of 7 kids. I was pushed aside when my mother started having babies left and right. And I just got lost in the shuffle. And I took that as, you don't love me. It had nothing to do with her loving me or not. It's just how I interpret it. So then I take all of that, because then we get into this cycle of, here's our belief, this is what our thought is, this is what we do, this is the action we take, and then we have a result, and everything goes back in a circle. So we're always constantly reaffirming the limited belief. And the only way to change that limited belief is to change the way we think. Look at what that belief is. Look at it that this is not, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Because we're supposed to be feeling empowered all the time, and our limiting beliefs make us feel small and insignificant. So it's just, let's look at what that is. Where do you feel unpowerful? And we'll go into that a little bit more after we take a break to hear from our sponsors.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality? But it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating. Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic on the BBM Global Network, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. Well, what I want to do is talk about when we don't feel so empowered because something's not working right. We have a self-limiting belief that is up, and it makes us feel small and insignificant. And when we're operating the way we're supposed to be, then our limiting beliefs aren't up. So you always want to pay attention to how you're feeling, because if you're not feeling empowered, then there's a limiting belief that is coming up and it's starting to take over and make you feel really bad. And you can have the desire to have what you want. And that is really key, because that keeps you moving forward. That's why I made that video. So that way, when I start feeling like I'm losing sight of where I am, I can go back to remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing, or if there's a lot of pain coming up or whatever. It's just that kind of a thing. You want to do things that are going to help you to remember to keep moving forward towards your dream. But you still need to believe that it's going to happen. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing, because as you're looking at things and you believe it, you're starting to activate different neurotransmitters in your brain, so where you're turning some things off and you're going to turn other ones on. And when they say it's 21 days to make a habit, I've always questioned that, but I think it's all about what's going on inside the brain is what I think they're really talking about at this point, is to really get those synapses where they're good and strong inside your body, inside your mind. And as long as you keep believing that it's going to happen, it will happen. There's no doubt. And it doesn't matter if it's something positive or something negative. Wherever your thoughts are is where your mind goes, and that's what it creates. So if you want to sit there and be Eeyore and doom and gloom, I guarantee you're going to get more of the doom and gloom. If you want to have a strong positive life, then you're going to do that. But you know what? You're going to go through your crap to get there, because that's the only way you're going to get there, is that you have to go into the unknown. You have to go into the darkness of you. You have to go through the fog in order to get what you want. That there's no getting around it, because we want to see the end result and make it real simple to get there. But that is not how we learn. It's not how we evolve. It's not how we grow. We are working in cooperation with Spirit, and that means Spirit is going to come in and assist us, because just because it doesn't look like anything's working right here in this little circle of us, that doesn't mean whatever's out there in the universe is not working towards us. We do not know what is going on in the ethers. And Zach and I talked about that yesterday of it may not look like anything's happening here in my physical world, but that doesn't mean that's not something not happening out in the ethers that are getting ready to come through. And I believe that things are getting ready to come through. So I am holding to my belief that this is going to happen. Whatever this is that I want, it's going to happen. But I also have to trust and take it slowly. I want to make sure that I'm not missing something along the way. I want to pay attention to how am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I observing in my world? What messages are being sent to me? Because Spirit is always talking to us. We just have to learn how to listen and to pay attention. And when we're wrapped up into our phones, or we're wrapped up into social media, or we're wrapped up in the TV, guess what? You ain't going to get nothing. I mean, that's the bottom line. Sorry, my throat is very dry. And I think that's one of the main things that I know that I struggle with is I don't necessarily like social media. I understand all of it and all that, but you know, if I'm really wanting to move into a new direction, or if I want a dream to accomplish, wasting my time on social media is not it. I mean, going in, making, you know, if you're in groups or whatever, that's one thing. But when you spend hours and hours and hours on social media, it's a distraction. And that is not what we're supposed to be. And then that can also cause like that constant fight or flight. I mean, when we're sitting here running 100 miles an hour, I mean, these people that drive on these highways at 90, 100 miles an hour, it's like, this is not a computer game, you know? This is not a computer game, and you're driving crazy and you could kill a lot of people. I mean, it's just what it is. So, you know, when you look at the way people drive too, it's like that's another sign that they're in fight or flight. They are not conscious of themselves. It's all about me. It's like you should have left 5 minutes early if you're that late, because there's no excuse to go 100 miles an hour on a busy highway. Okay. It's just not, in my opinion. And I just try to stay away from all of that as much as I can. But the main thing is you always want to be checking in on you. How are you feeling? How are you thinking? I mean, because there are times when I know I have to do something and it's just like this, ooh, and it's a limiting belief that will come up. It's, you know, what are you going to do to move through it? And, you know, because it's not real. And when I go in and dissect the belief, it's like, no. The other thing, when I was reviewing this, it also said we need to change the dialogue to ourselves, you know, change that dialogue. So we have this little nasty person in our head just saying, you know, you're worthless, you're, you know, whatever it is we say to ourselves. And it's like, give it a name. And I'm like, oh, I love that. Give it a name. And then you have a conversation with whatever the name is, you know, you have that conversation and then you sit there and start talking to it. Well, I've been doing that. I mean, I'd say for the last several weeks, I've been doing that when I've had a limiting belief come up and say something. And I say, no, I don't think so. That's not true. That is not, I don't think that, and I don't feel that way. Because I was looking at this one situation and it's like, so what's really coming up with you with respect to this situation? And it's like, well, I'm being demeaned. I'm not being heard. I'm being ignored. I'm being shown I have no value. It's not me. And when I sat there and had this conversation about this limiting belief in the situation that I'm in, I just realized it's like, it's all bullshit. Every bit of this it's not me, it's them. I haven't done anything. I'm just because this is what's showing up doesn't mean that's who I am. So it gave me the opportunity to say, okay, well, I'm not any of that. This is all a lie. Just because this person is not returning my calls or going through and following through on a contract, that has no reflection on me. It's just how I'm choosing to interpret it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do this. So I had that conversation. So we start changing how we talk about ourselves. And I've been doing that a lot. And it's been making a really cool like shift. And I think that's why I feel like Spirit's talking to me. I think that's why they sent me that dream to show this expansiveness that I'm I'm moving beyond that. I'm getting bigger than this small, insignificant person. So even though I may know who I am and I may have seen my magnificence, I realize I'm still getting caught up in the 3D world. I do so much better in the fifth dimensional world. I love it up there. But you come back and it's like, I got to pay my bills and I got to do this. And it's like, no, that yeah, you got to do that. But no, there's got to be another way to get there. And so right now I'm like balancing, how do I work in this fifth dimensional energy that I want to be up there and yet still manage to get everything else taken care of physically. And I know how to do it because I've already done it. And if I don't know how to do it, then I'm going to visualize that, because I'm going to have to create it, because that's the only way things work. You have to create that future self. Where do you want to go? How do you want to look? How do you want to feel? You have to create that, because if the brain doesn't know where to go, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm sitting here having to create this experience, this feeling, I see this being so big. It's not there today, but that doesn't mean it's not going there, because I'm going to see it. I'm going to see that it's all working out. Everything that's happening in my life right now is happening for my benefit, whatever that is. But that's what we do. We're constantly growing, learning, and evolving. And as long as we are learning and evolving, things are going to come up. We are still human. We are still going to have a human experience. We're still going to feel things. We're still going to be fighting ourselves. Limiting beliefs are going to keep coming up, because that's just what the nature of what happens is. How do we handle those limiting beliefs? How long do we sit there and let them come in? I don't let them come in. They show up. I look at them. I see them. And now I'm talking to them and saying, no, I'm really this kind of person. And as long as I'm stopping that, because I'm present in my life, I don't have to hold on to something for days or weeks or months. I'm not going to take a negative experience and drone on it and drone on it and drone on it, because that's so easy to do. It's so much harder to say, no, I want to feel good. When I say that I fight for my happiness, I fight for my happiness. I'm going to pay attention so I can keep moving forward. And regardless of what the body's doing or the mind's doing, I'm still in control. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are on the Bold Brave TV network. So what you want to do is you really do want to create that mindset for success. And you start with habits. I mean, one of the big things that I think was a big motivator for me, it's not the only motivator, but one was, what do I want my future self? How do I want to feel in my future self? What do I want to look like? Where do I want to be? And when you have that future self set up in your mind, the universe and you just start, like, it just starts funneling in and creating that kind of person. It's going to take you where it is that you want to go. And it's all about clarity. You just need to be very clear on what you want. And a lot of times we're not clear on what it is that we want. That's why it's not what do you don't want, or if you don't know how to do that, then write that list of what you don't want and then make the positive of it. And then really hone in on what it is that you want. Because I know we're always shifting and changing. We always think there's something better. But, when you get back to the core of who you are and why you're here, because we all have a mission, we all have a purpose. Every single one of us have it. And it's always going to be in whatever that discontent is with us. And for whatever reason, mine is about self-empowerment. I'm here to self-empower you. And I'm doing it because I had no power. I had no voice. I had no mouth. I didn't know how to speak. I didn't know how to do anything at all. Nothing. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know any of it. And so the quest that I went on was, who am I? Literally, truly, who am I? And because I was on the quest of who am I got to see who I am, and I know how to get you to where you are so you remember who you are. So my whole thing is always about self-empowerment. It's always been that. I've always wanted you to be bigger than you are, remember who you are, take responsibility for who you are. And this is all, every bit of what I talk about, I've walked every bit of where I am today. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, is understanding why I'm here and what my purpose is. Have I wanted to get out in the world? Oh, God, no, I was terrified of the world. Because I lived in a totally different world than this one. And to me, when I looked at that video today, it was like the world was harsh, it was mean, it was cruel, it was full of hate. And I was 16 years old, okay? I was 16, and that's how I saw the world, because that's what I saw in my world, in my family. But I didn't live in that world. My world was full of love and joy and peace and abundance and prosperity, because I lived up in the higher realms. I was working with the angels. I was talking to them. They were my friends. It was that kind of thing. That's what I did. And I thought that's where everybody else lived, but I came to find that wasn't true at all. So I'm bringing heaven to earth. That's how I look at it. I'm bringing heaven to earth. I know how to get you there. I am the doorway. I have been told that. I have been shown that. It's all in my books about that I'm a doorway. And I'm working with people to help them remember so they can move into the glorious and magnificence of them. Because if we become self-empowered, then we change the world. We change the world. The world's not going to change unless we change. So that's why it's like, create that vision for your life. What is it that you want? How much money do you want? Do you want to travel? Do you want kids? Do you want to, create the next color paint or something? Who cares what it is? We're all cogs in a wheel. We're all valuable. We all need to work with each other to create that. And that vision in your life can be a very strong desire to keep you moving forward. But just know that as you're moving forward into that new life, your limiting beliefs, your paradigms are going to come up in your face to look at, because they have to shift and change. And then don't look at any mistakes as failure. It's not a failure. It's a learning experience. And if you've got the right mindset, you're going to realize that. Because I know I walked around thinking I was a failure for the longest time. And now it's like, well, I just know all these ways that don't work. And that's how I had to shift that paradigm, because I'm not failing at anything. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm evolving. And anybody with the right mindset, the successful people out there, that's what they do. And sometimes you want to accelerate that failure so you know if you're on the right track or not. Hello, it's really simple, but it's like, how fast do you want to get to where you're going? that support system really helps, like with Dee. I mean, she's in my mastermind. I mean, she keeps me going forward. I mean, I got Zach. I mean, we talk. I mean, these are people that are helping me to stay on that track. I help them to stay on track. I mean, we're independent, we know, but we support each other because we're not going to do this alone. We can't do this alone. We're not designed to do this alone. So it's finding those like-minded people that are going to actually help you to grow and evolve. And then always, they always say this goal setting. What is it that you can accomplish? What's going to motivate you in setting your goals to do what you want? Because making that sales call is like, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. So I had to trick my mind and make sales calls. So I would stand up, I'd put a smile on my face, and I would just be, I'm here. And, and I was met with positivity. I wasn't met with, why are you calling me, and hanging up, and, you're scum because you're a salesperson, because I had to change that paradigm and that belief about it. So you have to really look at what it is, because, we all we sell ourselves. If you got married, you sold yourself somehow to get somebody to propose to you. I mean, somebody said that once and was like, well, that's kind of true. I can see that, but it's not like we're trying to sell our soul to the devil or sell our soul for anything. But, if we want people to like us and respect us, we're kind of like selling ourselves in a way. And you just have to kind of shift how you look at things, change your perspective, because that's the biggest thing that I think I've realized over the years is change your perspective. Now, I went to Egypt in 2000, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 2000 with my mom. And I was going to go to the pyramids, and I was in this spiritual group, and we were going to do all these, and it was like, well, I'm going to go in the pyramids, and then it's like, we're going to see if it amplifies, and we're going to do all this kind of stuff. So I did, right? But the one thing that I did before I went is I had this intense fear of just being confined. And so I decided I was going to go through this process, and I got myself in a box, and I stayed in a box for a while so I could do this. And the cool thing is that when I was in Egypt, I was in this pyramid, and the lights went out, and it was pitch dark, and everybody panicked but me, because all I always said is, all you had to do was change your perspective, because I died in a sarcophagus. That's what I did. I died. That's why I did this, because I wanted to get over this. And when I did that, it was like, wow, all I had to do was change my perspective. And that's all you have to do, is change your perspective as well, to gain control of you, your mind, your thoughts, and your emotions. Well, that's pretty much it for today. I just want to remind you that there's a 40% discount, Bold Brave TV, at the coupon code at awakeningspirit.com. Grandma's Natural Remedies is 20%. And I have courses going up on the Kathleen Flanagan. If you want to have a 15-minute talk with me, you're more than welcome. Just sign up on the calendar at the KathleenMFlanagan.net.com. My books are up there, and they're on Amazon as well. I have 2 of the 3 books that are already out for publication. And I certainly hope you enjoyed today's show, because I'm always, as I'm learning and growing, I want to bring what I'm learning and growing to you to help you, because maybe there's something, a little nugget that you'll be able to take with you. And so I just want to say that this is the journey of an awakening spirit, and from my heart, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network, and from my heart to yours, I hope you have a fabulous week. Bye for now.
This has been the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. Join Kathleen each week as she will inspire and empower all those who are drawn to her to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. Right here Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.